Hey, yo, I want to talk about Magic's latest set, Secrets of Strixhaven, which I have not played, like at all. I haven't opened any packs, I've tried to avoid spoilers, I haven't read the story yet, I don't know the draft archetypes, I don't know the mechanics, I haven't looked at any deck lists, I haven't played a single game of this set. I didn't even attend pre-release because quite frankly, it's too expensive and I can't really explain why. But the removal of date-stamped promos is the hill I'm gonna die on. It was one bridge too far, one corner cut too many. I think without them, pre-release feels incomplete. It feels like WotC are just hacking off parts of what once was my favourite product while I watch. And apparently their exclusion is enough to be the final straw that breaks this cartoon's back. I'd hoped the removal of date-stamped promos was a one-time thing for the Lorwyn pre-release, but I checked out what WotC said would be included in the Strixhaven kits, and the date-stamped promos weren't listed. So I'm out. I'd like to imagine that date-stamped promos actually were included again at pre-release, and I just don't know because I didn't attend. So let me know in the comments if that's true. But for now, until WotC make it abundantly clear beforehand that date-stamped promos are returning to pre-release, I won't be attending any future events. I'd advise you not attend them either, because for the goddamn price they're asking to play this game, which has undergone massive shrinkflation, and I'll remind you, Hasbro CEO Chris Cox says is marketed towards 11-year-olds, then the least they can do is provide a date-stamped card at pre-release. But, all that being said, I'm really excited for this set, and the reason that I haven't opened any packs or looked at draft archetypes or whatever yet, is because my assistant, Dr. Hans, has literally only just now picked up a box. See, I imagine by the time this video is out, the set would have released a week or so ago already, but for me right now, it's only the Monday after pre-release, which I didn't attend. And yes, I should probably wait to actually experience the set before I review it, but screw it, it's my channel, I'm excited. Dr. Hans has a box and I don't want to wait. So today, join me as we open up 6 packs from it and I experience Secrets of Strixhaven for the first time. The packaging says there's a mystical archive card in every pack, which is very cool. Those are an example of one of my favourite genre of card in Magic, and I'm going to try not to talk about why, because if I do, this video is going to be an hour long, so I'll have to discuss what they share in common with sagas and planar showcase frames in another video. As today, I just want this to be a pack opening. Unless we pull the card Mathematics, which I've been told I'm going to have opinions on. I don't know what the rules text of it is, but if it's that bad, then I reserve the right to bin off this blind review premise and spend the rest of the video talking about that one card instead. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen though, and let's zoom in on the box. Now, I won't bang on about this too much today, as I went to lengths to explain my reasoning last video, but I am still very glad to see different artworks on packs, and it seems Strixhaven takes it one step further by having them be different colours too. One to represent each of the colleges, apart from 2. Which is a bit weird that there's only 3 variants and not 5. But regardless, I'm still a fan of this, and you can watch my Lorwyn retrospective if you want to hear why. Also included in the box are the draft archetypes for the set. Only 5, which makes sense I suppose. More often than not lately, sets have had 10 draft archetypes, but there's only 5 here, which I think makes sense. Looking at this, it seems Repartee, Opus, and Incremental might be 3 possible new keywords. Lorehold gets the classic flashback mechanic, and Witherbloom doesn't look like it has a keyword mechanic at all. Which will be odd if true. I'll keep an eye out for these I guess as we go. But for now, Pack 1. As per usual, Dr. Hans has laid these out in the order that he's opened them. Here we have our 6 to 7 commons, our 3 uncommons, 1 wild card of any rarity, our guaranteed rare or mythic rare for the pack, 1 guaranteed mystic archive card, 1 traditional foil of any rarity, 1 land card, and 1 non-foil punch-out counter card or double-sided token. And our spotlight card for the pack is the Mythic Rare Restoration Seminar, a sorcery with the returning lesson subtype introduced in the first Strixhaven set. The rules text reads, return target non-land permanent card from the graveyard to the battlefield, Paradigm, which is a keyword wasn't mentioned in the draft archetypes, but I'm unfamiliar with it, so I'm pretty sure this is new. Embarrassing if I'm wrong. It's on a white card, and this is recursion, so I imagine it's for the Lorehold flashback deck. And the reminder text says, then exile this spell after you first resolve a spell with this name. An additional spell with the same name, I assume, and not this spell itself. But it is 7 mana though? Surely they're not expecting you to cast 2 of these in a game, or have multiple of them in a deck. especially when Commander has so much focus on it now. Wait, hang on. Then exile this spell. After you first resolve a spell with this name. After you first resolve it. And yeah, the mechanic triggers as you resolve it, so after means that it will work for this spell itself, because by that point you would have already cast a spell with this name. So why not just say after this spell resolves then? Oh, because you could do multiple. If you've got more than one of this, it would trigger every time, whereas if you limit it by name, that's good. That's interesting. Doing it by name limits it to one trigger no matter how many of them you cast. Okay. You may cast a copy of it from exile without paying its mana cost at the beginning of each of your main phases. Wow, ouch. Hang on. So you're not even recasting this from exile then? It's not it goes to exile and then you choose a turn to cast it. You cast a copy each turn. That's really strong. I'm going to bet that this isn't just a lore hold mechanic then. This will either be for lesson cards. No, this will be for the mythics of the set. This will be on a cycle of mythics. Wow, though, that's basically like having an emblem without actually having to have an emblem. People weren't a big fan of emblems because they weren't on the card themselves and people got confused as to whether they did or didn't have it. Whereas you can see that this card is in exile, and if that's the case, you know you're going to be able to cast a copy of it every turn. That's a really smart design, and it's a really powerful card too. But also is 7 mana, which feels fair. If I've understood that right, that's a really, really good card. And a good design space, wow, yeah. Pack 2. There's a lot here that I want to talk about, but actually I think it's important for the Spotlight card to be Fields of Strife, which is the land card for the pack. Because dual lands have always been the bottleneck to higher levels of play, and sure, this particular one doesn't have the basic typings, which means it can't be fetched or tutored, I suppose. And there are better Surveil lands already, so this isn't technically a quote-unquote good one. But you know what? I think it's cool that WotC have been printing those more powerful lands recently, and printing a variety of less powerful ones like this too, which is going to keep the price down for all of them, and if I was just starting out, I'd rather have something like this in my deck than nothing at all. So I actually say good job WotC, keep it up. Pack 3. Once again, a lot to talk about with this pack. Strixhaven seems jam-packed with new mechanics, but our Spotlight card is Textbook Tabulator, because it has one of those draft archetype keywords. It reads, Increment. Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana you spent is greater than this creature's power or toughness, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Huh, okay. So it's like prowess but more complicated. Starts out as a 0/3, which feels appropriate because these sorts of cards do have the potential to get really big really quickly. Unlike prowess, it's a +1/+1 counter that won't disappear at the end of the turn, but you're also limited in how much you can buff it by the maximum mana value of the cards that you're casting, and not just how many spells you've cast, but like how big they are. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one. Feels like it's maybe a lot to track, because while I think it is balanced, it's also not just a binary of have I cast a spell or not, if yes then prowess gets buffed. This has an extra step of I've cast a spell, what is that spell's mana value? How does that compare to the power and toughness of each individual creature? And then which ones do and don't get counters? And that's a lot, it's just not for me. I'm not saying it's a bad mechanic, I'm just not a personal fan of that kind of bookkeeping in a game. But I know people who are. It's just for me there's a reason that Coat of Arms is my least favourite card, for instance. Because to me there's a difference between a card being complex in a tactical strategic way, and cards that are complicated in a more bureaucratic, red tape, paperwork, form-filling kind of way. This kind of play is just not for me. But it does feel flavourful for the wizard math nerds that would be attending this college, so... Oh, is that what mathematics is about? Is that why people have told me I won't like it? Okay, that's interesting. We'll have to keep an eye out for that. Anyway. Pack 4. Okay. I promise I'm not about to go on a very long-winded tangent about Mystic Archives like I threatened earlier. But our Spotlight card does have to be Giant Growth. For one very simple reason. Look at that squirrel's face. That is how you do it. That is how you make me love a variant of a card that I've already seen a million times. Because it's just a Giant Growth, but look at it. This is what Secret Lair should be, because look, they can include cards like this in packs instead of selling them separately at a premium. And it's excellent when they do. They should do it for more sets. This is great. I'm having a lot of fun. Pack 5. Once again, we have another example of yet another new mechanic that I want to talk about, because our spotlight card for the pack is Grave Researcher with its prepared spell of Reanimate. Now this is a new mechanic that I was aware of going into this set, and first of all, I think it's a fun idea to have spell casting creatures be able to cast their own spells, even if it is you as the player having to pay the mana cost. I'm saying if Grave Researcher wants to cast Reanimate, he should stop mooching and get a job. But the card I saw previous didn't have reminder text, so I was under the impression cards with this mechanic became prepared when they entered, or maybe at the start of each turn, which would be busted. However, this reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, surveil 1, then if there are 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard, this creature becomes prepared, which I assume means it actually isn't prepared when you first cast it, and if so, that's less busted and very flavourful and interesting. This is yet another mechanic that makes you work a bit for it, and will give you a repeatable way to cast Reanimate, which in turn, if you do too many times, will mean you won't have enough creatures in your graveyard to trigger Grave Researcher becoming prepared again. Intricate, flavourful, and self-regulating. This is genius design space, and WotC have really been knocking it out of the park with some of their designs lately. Pack 6. Oh good, because I was expecting at least 2 more keyword mechanics in the set from what I saw from the draft archetypes. And luckily, here's one in our spotlight card, of Snooping Page, which is a black-white card with the Silver Quill mechanic of Repartee. It reads, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery that triggers a creature doesn't have to be your own, which is very in keeping with Silver Quill, this creature can't be blocked this turn. I suspect Repartee isn't a keyword then, but an ability word, with the trigger a creature part being the same across every example of the mechanic, but the resulting second half being different. Because if it's the case that Silver Quill's whole deal is just having its creatures not be blocked, then that's not very interesting for a whole draft archetype. Yeah, I'll need to see other examples, but I expect other Repartee cards will do different stuff. Because this set appears to be very intricate and flavourful, even to the point where some mechanics won't be liked by some people, like we saw with Increment earlier. But that's good, because if everything's meant to have broad appeal, then things just kind of end up feeling a bit bland. So I think it's great that some of these college mechanics are so specific to a certain subset of play. And with that in mind, I doubt they'd let Silver Quill be the exception to that, so yeah, Repartee has an interesting trigger, but I imagine the other effects have to be different stuff. And that's all 6 packs. As I've said several times, I think this set is very intricate and flavourful, and that's exactly what I want from a Magic set, so big fan. And this isn't nostalgia, I wasn't even really into the first Strixhaven set. Quite frankly, because I was waiting for what felt like the inevitable Harry Potter tie-in. Like a Scooby-Doo villain, I was waiting for Strixhaven to pull its mask off to reveal itself to be a hat set or some cheap corporate tie-in. But it never came, thankfully. But my point is, the hype that I have for this new set isn't based on fond memories of the original. I actually think it's based on recency bias. Tarkir Dragonstorm, Edge of Eternities, Lorwyn Eclipsed, and now seemingly this. All those sets have had problems for sure, but they've all been decent sets overall. And I think maybe without even realising it, WotC have been earning back a bit of my trust lately, resulting in this unexpected hype that I have for Strixhaven. Is that deserved? I don't know, I haven't played the set yet, but as a fan of the game, this is great. This is exactly how it should be. Being a bit better value for money would be nice, but I like the set and I don't even think we saw all of the mechanics. In fact, I know we didn't, because I don't think we saw any examples of whatever Opus is. And I'll be amazed if Witherbloom doesn't at least have an ability word of its own too. So one potential critique, lesson cards, paradigm, and not forgetting prepare, it feels like there's a lot of non-archetype mechanics in this set, which I suppose makes sense when there's only 5 archetypes and not the more frequent 10. I assume meaning more mechanics to spread out across every other faction in the set, I suppose. But then given how intricate some of these mechanics are, I question what that does to limited environments. If you've played, let me know. Is the set too complicated? How beginner friendly is it? The fact that we just managed to open 6 packs, the same number you'd get at pre-release, and not even find an example of every mechanic? Is it too much? I'll be honest, I don't think it would be much concern for me. I've come away thinking the set looks like a lot of fun. And only last week I knocked Landfall for being a no-brainer mechanic that basically plays itself. But even just incremental, I think proves that that isn't going to be the experience of this set. Which is great. So let me know. What do you think of Secrets of Strixhaven? Is it any good? And more importantly, did I dodge a bullet by not having to talk about Mathemagics? Even the name alone makes me think that I did. Thank you very much for watching this video, and thank you to everyone that supports me, like 27 publications, Eggboy the Particle that permeates all existence, Blank Space, Wanpako Jozu, Miss Murder, a random Patreon, Ominous Jazz, and the rest of my patrons whose names are on screen now. I'd also like to thank the sponsor for this video, me and my Patreon page, where you can get your name credited on screen too. Check it out in the link in the description below. Hit the like button, leave a comment, come support me on Patreon, and most importantly, subscribe and share this video with a friend. Hit the notification bell and do all those things the algorithm loves. If you agree or disagree with any of my points, or you want to see me do a video on another subject, let me know, and I will see you next time. Cue me making myself laugh trying to say paradigm. Return target non-land permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Paradigm. Paradigm. Return. I need to stop making that joke. I can't keep doing that. But the problem is, every time I make that joke, I then find it funny, and then I kind of talk myself into it and include it in the video. I'm not doing that. I'm going to say the word right this time. People are going to think I'm insane. Or I can't read. Right. Return target non-land permanent card from the graveyard to the battlefield. Paradigm.